Exposure therapy. This is something that I've started doing recently with my counselor, and it's been really transformative so far. Exposure therapies that I've been doing is basically exposing myself to things that can trigger compulsive urges. And for me, it's largely centered around food, as I've had a eating disorder over the years that I've been recovering from. And binge eating on junk food and high carb food and just a lot of processed foods and just things that aren't good for my body but that give me sense pleasure in my mouth and trigger positive emotions usually. Yeah, and sorry about my finger there. So the exposure I've been doing is listening to audio that I've recorded of myself. That's about 2 minutes, and it's just audio that's saying a lot of negative self-talk or like trickery, delusional thinking that it's similar to thoughts that I've had when I've had urges. And so, it might be thoughts like, you could have just a little bit, that'll be fine. You can have off-plan food once in a while, everyone does it. You can't do this. Dude, you've failed so many times, like why would it be different? You're gonna have it anyways. But it's okay. It's not too big of a deal. Those kind of thoughts like that. But it can really be anything. But the point of it is it puts me into, it can put me into an anxious, chaotic mental state. And then it will, over time, it gets me used to noticing those thoughts and feelings and just letting them be and pass. And then I've noticed like now those thoughts happen in actual real-time settings, when I have urges, I recognize it easier just to be like, oh, it's that thought that just plays sometimes and it's not a big deal, and I just keep doing what I'm doing, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And so I decided to amp it up, the exposure, and my therapist also thought this was a good idea. And today, I've done this several times now with food. I take the food, I grab food while I listen to that audio on my headphones, and then I take whatever kind of food items that I've used compulsively in the past, and so today, I'll just give you an example instead of trying to explain it. I drove listening to the audio in my car to Krispy Kreme donuts, and I got to Krispy Kreme, looked at their selection for a while, picked a few donuts, classic donut and a donut it was an iced donut filled with cake batter, and then I got a coffee and I put cream in it, and I sat down, and then I just pulled out the donuts and put them up to my face, smelled them, looked at them, kind of imagined what it might taste like, and while I'm listening to the negative self-talk on the audio, through my headphones, and occasionally I'm looking at reading just some material on my phone, because typically when I'd have pastries and coffee, I would read some article or a book or something. And so I kept cycling through that, just going back to smelling the food and putting it up close to my face, observing all the textures and colors, sights, sounds, smells, using all my senses, and listening to the audio, reading a little bit, and going back to that. And I did that, and eventually got up, and I had spent maybe about a half hour total doing that. And then I said, okay, if that's good, because my therapist is recommending a half hour for the exposures at this point, and a day. And so I actually offered the food to someone. They didn't want it, and so I just threw it away, walked out, and drove to this beach while I listened to the audio more. And man, when I was driving back, I started having some even more intense emotions than at the donut shop. At the donut shop, it was like, yeah, I was definitely like craving and salivating and like wanting it, and it was pretty, it was challenging. But like when I got in the car, it upped itself somehow, and I started shaking, actually physically shaking some, like a little mini panic. And then I drove for a while, and I think I associated with some memories of being in elementary and getting fed donuts as rewards for good work in the classroom. And that was one of the first times I had eaten like off of my plan for diabetes when I was young, in like 4th grade. And that was it's actually kind of traumatized me. And so I don't know, something about that came up, but it just triggered a lot of feelings in me, and I cried and I sobbed for a short period, and it felt like a really good release. And then I continued on driving and listening to the audio, and came and parked, and then I finally shut it off, and I just did a meditation session here, and man, it's really empowering. It sounds really counterintuitive, but I'm really getting that the more I expose myself to these foods, especially like the actual food itself, not just through a picture or through audio, but actually in like what I did, having donuts right in front of me, or like bringing peanut butter right in front of me the other days, and some different foods. But it's because I've developed a lot of fear and anxiety around being at like birthday parties where cake is served, or social gatherings where people are eating all this junk food and I keep being offered it, or going to a pizza party and I don't eat pizza. I'm on a very low carb ketogenic diet, and I don't eat dairy, and have a lot of strict dietary commitments that I want to follow through with, that matter to me and I value. But it's a lot of the social situations throw me off, but then there's the urges in my mind, visions I have inside of my head, and sights I see, like driving by fast food places, and walking down the street and smelling toasted sandwiches or whatever, or seeing people eating ice cream at the beach. So there's a lot of fear around like just encountering those things, and so I think encountering it on an intentional basis in the correct mindset of it being a therapy is, man, it's really empowering. And like today, like I haven't done that before with going to a donut shop. That was the first time I did that, and I'm just getting going on these exposures, and so it's new to me. So but like already, like with today, like I feel like, man, like I can really have power over over donuts. It might sound funny, but yeah, that's like has gotten pretty serious in my mind, and it's pretty awesome. And so like I've done that with peanut butter more times than the donuts, and I feel like way less anxious around peanut butter and just in general food being exposed to me, like people around me. And it's just, even if I do feel it, it's I'm like, I feel like I can handle it, and I don't have to give in to my desires and cravings and urges that are emotionally based and immature. Yeah, so I just really wanted to share like exposure therapy with, I guess it's called exposure response therapy, and that's what I'm doing with food right now, and I highly recommend it. Very liberating, and that's one way to utilize diabetes, the emotional, mental, psychological side of diabetes, to your benefit, and be empowered. Yeah. Thank you.